Greetings, and welcome to the Central Highlands. In this series, we'll summit each and every one of its fantastic Munros and delve into the history, nature, and geography of their surroundings. Each episode features detailed route descriptions, deeply researched local history, and vital information for the mountaineer that you may not find elsewhere. We begin with the spectacular Ben Cruachan. Hello once again. In this episode, we head to Loch Awe in Argyll to climb the magnificent Ben Cruachan and Stob Daimh. Along the way, we'll explore the written history of Ben Cruachan, check out the incredible feat of engineering that is the Cruachan hydroelectric scheme, and learn about Robert the Bruce's victory at the Battle of the Pass of Brander. If you find yourself enjoying the show, hit that like button and subscribe to see new episodes as soon as they arrive. The route we're taking, known as the Cruachan horseshoe, begins at the Falls of Cruachan railway stop by the A85 to Oban on the narrow Pass of Brander. The path leads through woodland to reach the open hillside beyond, climbing towards the Coire and the Cruachan Daimh. Once getting up the dam involved a Tom Cruise style ascent up a ladder far more exposed and deadly than any other part of the route, but thankfully now there's a staircase, or of course the track. From here we follow the banks of the reservoir into Coire Corrach, where a path breaks off to the west about 100 metres before the track ends. This takes us into Coire Corrach, the Red Coire. This is initially boggy, then steep and stony on its final section. Once on the Bealachan Lochan, the route up the south ridge becomes apparent. Its steep, scree-laden slopes topped with a crown of boulders defending the summit. From the small, precarious summit of Ben Cruachan, we follow the east ridge, after the first dip encountering what we'll call the ramp, a rock tour that may quicken the heart of the less confident, as it appears to require direct exposure to the abyss of Coire Corrach. Thankfully it doesn't, and the route over it is pretty obvious from this direction. Its name should be a pretty good hint. Descending it is another matter entirely, as the route is not clear from the top, unlike the abysmal drop in front of you. In winter it may be iced over and thus require crampons. This is the only real obstacle on the ridge, and the rest of the walk over Drochid Glass, the Grey Bridge, and onto Stob Daimh is sublime. Descent is via the south ridge over Stove Garib and the unnamed Point 947, after which the ridge drops to Larrig Torrin, from where boggy but gradual slopes return you to the reservoir and the trackhead at the dam. The more adventurous may wish to combine these hills with the neighbouring Munros, Ben Cruachan and Ben Cruachan, by heading northeast from Stob Daimm's summit along the Airy Ridge to Sron-nan-Eason, the Chicken's Nose, and a rough descent to the Larrig Knoll. Yo, here we are at what must be the smallest train station that I've been to, Falls of Cruachan, at the bottom of Ben Cruachan up here. Now our path basically goes under the railway there and up into these woods here. Let's bash up there. Well, here we are, just making our way through beautiful oak, birch and hazelwood. This path ascends beside the Loch Cruachan, which is very much reduced from what it was. As for why, we shall soon see. Well, this path certainly doesn't mess about. Pretty direct, so it's time to stop yakking and get cracking. Ben Cruachan's conspicuous placement and romantic appearance meant it was noticed and written about earlier than many other mountains. Indeed, it's among the very first Scottish hills on record to be referred to by name. In The Bruce, John Barber's epic 1375 poem on the wars of Scottish independence, reference is made to Robert the Bruce's passage of the mountain thus: "Yet it was hard to pass that way. Crechin ben hecht yat mountain, I trow nocht yat in all Breton, and a higher hill may Fundon be." No, he wasn't from Aberdeen, that's just medieval English. He's basically saying that he estimates that in all of Britain no higher hill may be found. Bless. For Robert the Bruce, Ben Cruachan was in fact both obstacle and opportunity, as we'll see later. Well, here we are, just emerging from the woods here onto the open hillside, and you can see the fish farms down there in Loch Awe. The rest of Loch Awe as well there in the background. Hey, what's the longest freshwater loch in Scotland? Loch Ness, right? No, it's Loch Awe. Only 70 metres deep, Loch Awe is over 25 miles in length. Its north spur along the Pass of Brander, providing a lot of that extra shoreline. Originally a sea loch, with an opening to the south, towards the end of the last ice age, it's likely that this outflow was blocked by glacial ice, and so the loch developed a new river, the Awe, flowing from the Pass of Brander into Loch Awe at Tainalt. Its shallow depth means it contains many small, verdant and interesting islets, which we'll look at in more detail next time. Damn! There it is, the most conspicuous part of the Cruachan hydroelectric scheme. Talking of which, Cruachan was the last of the large-scale government-built hydroelectric schemes, begun in 1959 and opening just days after Nosheb visionary Tom Johnson's death in 1965. Its system is different than that of Sloy or the Breadalbane schemes that we've already visited, in that it does not rely solely on nature and gravity for its operation. During the day, the familiar reservoir dam turbine system generates hydroelectricity using gravity, while at night, off-peak electricity is used to pump water back up from Loch Awe via pressurised pipes to the reservoir, ensuring varying rainfall levels in the catchment area do not affect its output. The truly astonishing thing is that the turbine hall is actually built into Ben Cruachan itself, a massive cavern roughly the size of an Olympic swimming pool and 30 metres in height has been hollowed out of the Munro. Why? Well, so narrow is the Pass of Brander between Ben Cruachan and Loch Awe that there's no space for a turbine building, only the power transmission station itself. This unique feature gives Ben Cruachan its modern nickname of the Hollow Mountain. That's more like it. Good morning. After having passed a rather rainy and misty night, you can see the mist is clearing to see Ben Cruachan towering up there behind Miel Cúnal in the foreground here. Well, here we are at the Hydro Road. There's a little sign over here informing you that this bridge structure is owned by Drax Enterprises. which doesn't sound horrific and dystopian at all, does it? But yeah, basically they run the Cruachan hydro scheme. Right, well, I better get my compression bolts out, huh? Oh no, wait. There's some slippery steps. Here we are making our way along the track beside the reservoir, and amazing 360 you get, as you can see, all the way around the ridge up there to the airy top of Ben Cruachan. Okay, so here we are at the path leading up to Coire Corrach, the red quarry. You can see the summit of Ben Cruachan up there. Looks like it's turning into a beautiful day. So let's head up Coire Corrach. Well, here we are emerging from the boggy section at the bottom of this path to the steeper bit of Coire Corrach here. I don't know why it's called Coire Corrach. It doesn't look particularly red to me either. Well, here we are at the start of the fun bit, at the head of Coire Corrach here. We've got a fairly tasty climb up to the Bealachan Loch. Let's do it! Almost there. No, false Bealach. A final climb awaits. Here we are emerging onto Bealachan Loch itself. Fairly steep, but not really a scramble. And there is said Lochen. Magical views out to the Isle of Mull. The pioneering adventure naturalists Stuart and Lightfoot that we learnt about in episode 18 of series 1 mention finding trailing time-leaved azalea near the summit of Ben Cruachan in Argyll in the late 18th century. In the first official record of the Highlands, the old statistical account, a real page-turner, Cruachan is mentioned by the Reverend Ludovic Grant as, quote, one of the highest mountains in Scotland. The summit is divided into two parts. The north point is regarded as the highest, I'm afraid it's 20 metres shorter, and commands a very noble and most extensive prospect. The sea pink grows upon it, and seashells have been found on the summit. Well, here we are on the south ridge. There's no respite here. Straight up. We've still about 300 metres to the summit. Well, here we are in the south ridge proper. A little cairn here to guide you in the poor visibility. No such problems today though. Very, very stony top. Up there, Ben Cruachan. Even the rocks of Ben Cruachan are gorgeous to look at. The higher you go, the more the sharp edges of Coire Corrach give way to rounded, weathered stones that we'll encounter all the way along the ridge. Well, as you can see, the views out to Loch Awe are absolutely fantastic. Here we are, approaching the summit arena. Now obviously in winter time this terrain would be tricky, put it mildly. Very uneven, very stony, liable to move underneath your feet as you go up. Over there you can see the feature that we're calling the ramp. Now from this angle it doesn't look much like a ramp, but when you're coming down the ridge it starts to resemble more of a wedge that you can walk up, and you can actually see the way up it right there. It looks more serious than it actually is. And there is a bypass path below it, though that looks more trouble than it's worth, to be honest. Don't be fooled by what looks like scree. Those are no mere stones. They're large rocks and boulders, and the summit cone is larger, further away, and more cumbersome than it initially appears from the south ridge. And here we are about to tackle the final summit cone. See you at the summit. This feels more like climbing the Great Pyramid of Giza than a Munro, but it won't take you long to clamber your way up, and the angle eases off a few metres below the summit. Well, to quote my namesake of the 13th century, Hechtiat Monten indeed. It doesn't let up, I tell you that. You certainly feel the height gain from sea level coming up here. Basically this summit cone is a case of choose your own adventure. It's pretty obvious where the summit is, unless it's really no visibility. So yeah, pick your path and get your head down. So the last few metres, let's head on up there. Well, here we are, emerging on the spectacular summit of Ben Cruachan. Mountain of the rocky heaps. And wow, looking over to Mull there. Majestic view over there to Tainalt Peak, and Oban in the background. What many may consider the main attraction, however, is Loch Awe and Glen Awe over here, basically making its way up to the peaks of Glencoe and the rest of the Central Highlands. Early 19th century geologist and proto-bagger John McCulloch is generally regarded as the first recorded summiteer of Ben Cruachan. He says the ascent of Cruachan is tedious but not difficult, and from its position no less than its altitude, it presents some of the finest and most extensive mountain views in Scotland. From the bold, rugged precipices of its sharp and rugged summit, which is literally a point, we look down its red and furrowed sides into the upper part of Loch Awe. However, his day didn't get off to the best of starts. The morning is fine, it is 7 o'clock and you're in a hurry to depart for the top of Cruachan, which you know will occupy you for 9 or 10 hours. Geez, what route is he taking? You order your breakfast immediately, having ordered it the previous night to be ready at 6. After ringing, stamping and knocking 3 times, up comes a barefooted woman. "Aye," she says, "is it breakfast you is wanting?" All this time the sun is shining temptingly bright on the summit of Cruachan, as it may not shine again for 6 months, and another period of patience is past. A musty damp loaf arrives, and butter pulled out of a pot by her fingers to eat the bread with. You depart for the top of Cruachan and arrive with just a cloud that remains there the whole day, and will probably remain until you come this way again. It's not too bad. The path goes down here, right? Wrong. That's a few metres drop. The direct route lies over this boulder and others down the crest, while a bypass to the right that initially looks even worse turns out to be an easy descent with little exposure. Here we are on the narrow eastern ridge of Ben Cruachan here. The crest route behind me there is completely optional. You can scramble over that if you so desire. Now we make our way down to a notch in the ridge, where awaiting us lies the ramp. Well, here we are at the ramp. As you can see, it doesn't look quite as scary as it did from down there in Coire Corrach, or low on the south ridge. The direct ascent of the ramp is an obvious scramble on excellent rock, but it's steep, with a big drop to Coire Corrach below, and while not directly exposed to it, you are, let's say, very aware of the cliffs of Coire Corrach to your left. If the direct ascent is too full on for you, there's an easy way to turn it that avoids scrambling, but it's hidden from view beyond a moderately exposed section on angled slabs, which is probably why the desperate bypass paths snake away down the steep slopes below it. Make no mistake, these bypass paths are for sheep, not humans. They're far more hassle than anything you'll experience on the ramp, and as such, it's really not worth it. Above them, the bottom of the ramp protrudes outward like a diving board above Coire Corrach, and this exposure at least cannot be avoided. The good news is, it's very, very brief. We're talking about 30 seconds, and the rock is clean, with a rough surface offering superb traction even when wet. The problem is the angle. No matter how much care is taken, your survival instinct screams in your face that you're going to slide down it and off the edge. However, this is why we wear walking boots with strong grip. If you can hold your nerve, traverse 2 metres straight ahead from the main path, across the angled slabs, past a narrow crack on your left, and around a small rock rib, to discover a short gully that takes you gently back up to the ridge crest without requiring fresh underwear. In winter, of course, the ramp becomes a far more serious problem. While crampons and due care will get you across it in no time, the greatly increased sense of danger is likely to render it impassable to the less experienced. Indeed, if you were to lose your nerve here in icy conditions, the retreat back up Ben Cruachan's summit arête would be terrifying, so if you summit Cruachan in winter conditions and are unsure about the ramp, I'd strongly advise you avoid the ridge traverse altogether, or wait for summer. The Oban Mountain Rescue Team will greatly appreciate the wisdom of your decision. And that's the ramp done. Nae bother at all. As mentioned, this is the only real obstacle on the ridge, so the rest of it is a nice stroll over to Stob Daimh, the peak of the stag. Let's head on over there. Well, it's certainly a very fine ridge walk along here. Onward to the Grey Bridge. Well, here we are on the Bialach between Ben Cruachan and Droghid Glass. You can see those fantastic cliffs there. Look at that detail and striation of the rock. Outstanding. Well, here we are approaching the airy summit of Droghid Glass, the Grey Bridge. Magnificent views back to Cruachan. And up there, Ben Stabbh, Hill of the Rustling, on Loch Awe. And of course, the majestic Ben Nevis there in the background. First class. The height, the rugged splendour, and the astonishing views of Cruachan from Droghid Glass do beg the question of why it's not a Munro, especially given it's higher than the other actual Munro on the ridge, Stob Daimh. This is one of the few occasions where Sir Hugh Munro actually explains some of the rationale behind his list, albeit vaguely. He claimed that Droghid Glass was not sufficiently distanced from the other tops, and that there was not enough height drop between it and Cruachan and Stob Daimh to merit its inclusion as a Munro in its own right. That's right, folks. Ben Cruachan makes the list, but this doesn't. Go figure. Behind me you can see the ridge over there to Stob Daimh. So without further ado, let's head on over there. The main path becomes increasingly steep and desperate on its way down from Droghid Glass, and before it gets too serious, you're best leaving it and descending easier rocks to the south of the crest, unless you enjoy big drops and small footholds. Here we are, our second Munro of the day, and indeed our second of the Central Highlands. Ebbit!
Here we are at the final top of the day, Stob Daimh. You can see why it's called that. For those of you disheartened by yet another bit of ascent, look at it, it's nothing. You'll have it done in no time, and then it's all downhill.
Look at that. One shelter stone to rule them all. The wind's coming from the northwest. The Battle of the Pass of Brander was fought between Robert the Bruce and the MacDougals of Argyll in August 1308. It ended in victory for the soon-to-be King of Scotland. We know Bruce was previously beaten by the MacDougals at Dalry, but just who were the MacDougals, and what exactly was their beef with Bruce? Well, it all started around a decade before. In 1292, John Balliol was crowned King of Scotland to solve a crisis caused by the death of King Alexander III's only heir. However, Balliol, though backed by the powerful Comyn family and William Wallace, proved little more than a puppet of English King Edward I. Robert Bruce, Robert the Bruce's grandfather, found this intolerable, and he wasn't alone. In 1295, the Scottish nobility took the law into their own hands and created the Council of 12 to rule instead. The council promptly signed that which would become known as the Auld Alliance, a treaty of solidarity with France. This led an enraged Edward I to invade Scotland, beginning the Wars of Scottish Independence. These went badly for the Scots, and when Balliol abdicated in 1296, Scotland was left without a king. This led to an interregnum, a posh word for an ugly power struggle. In 1306, Robert the Bruce fatally stabbed his main rival for the throne, John Red Comyn, after a heated argument in front of the altar at Greyfriars Chapel in Dumfries. This was seen as a grievous betrayal, given Comyn had at one point led the fight against the English in the Wars of Independence. In response to his murder, the Comyn family sided with King Edward I of England. As Comyn was related to Alexander MacDougall of Argyll by marriage, the powerful Clan MacDougall also sided with England and had Bruce declared in exile. Later that year, Bruce was hastily crowned King of Scotland at Scone with the support of the, at the time, Catholic Church, though his wife remarked, "I fear we may have been crowned King and Queen as in children's games." Indeed, his reign didn't get off to a great start. Bruce was roundly beaten in battle at Methven in 1306, and the remains of his army picked off in the ambush at Dalry by Alexander MacDougall's son John, later known as John Bacach the Lame, or as mentioned, John of Lorne. Bruce went into hiding, gained inspiration from the famous spider in the cave, and returned with old swords blazing, raising an army and stamping his authority on the lowlands and the northeast of Scotland. It probably helped that Edward I died in 1307, leaving what influence the English crown still had in Scotland disorganised and ripe for attack. By mid-August 1308, Bruce was heading for Argyll to settle the score with the MacDougals from the Battle of Dalry, and with the ageing clan chief Alexander MacDougall bedridden at Dunstaffnage Castle, his son John Bacach was tasked with the defence of the kingdom. However, Lame John was himself only just recovering from an illness, and so he bravely observed proceedings from a boat on Loch Awe while his men hid on the slopes above the narrow pass of Brander, lying in wait for Bruce's forces like they did at Dalry, in the hope of a similar ambush. However, Bruce wasn't falling for that old trick again, having learned the art of guerrilla warfare himself in exile, and had his trusty lieutenant James Black Douglas and his archers take positions further up Ben Cruachan, some even managing to sneak around behind the enemy. The Black epithet is common in this era and basically means ruthless, and not that they needed a bath. Caught between Bruce's main attack from below and Douglas's barrage of arrows and boulders from above, the MacDougals were soon decimated, and the survivors fled west over the Bridge of Awe, attempting to destroy it behind them, only to be caught in the act by their pursuers. Lame John, meanwhile, escaped in his boat to Loch Awe, from where he sailed to England to be made Admiral of the Western Seas by King Edward II, which does make you wonder what he'd have got if he'd actually won. Having captured the fantastically named Bridge of Awe, Bruce and his forces continued through the pass to take Argyll and lay siege to Dunstafnage Castle, with Alexander MacDougall taken as hostage for the good behaviour of his people, or made to sign a truce, depending on which history book you read. The castle was provisioned, and Bruce's men put in place to keep the MacDougalls in check. Faced with Bruce's overwhelming military successes, his remaining Scottish enemy, the Earl of Ross, soon capitulated. Robert the Bruce would lead the Scots to victory over Edward II at Bannockburn in 1314, and eventually, 20 years after the Battle of the Pass of Brander, oversee Scotland's formal independence from England with the signing of the Treaty of Edinburgh-Northampton in 1328. Here, Bruce was at last recognised as the de facto ruler of an independent Scotland.
And before you know it, here we are, our fourth and final top of the day. What a fantastic ridge walk this has been. Just looking back there, you can see the route that we've taken. And yeah, 5 stars, magnificent. And the visibility continues to amaze to the north there. Absolutely fantastic. Ben Cruachan, Stob Daimh, and the Ben right there in the background. Also looking fantastic over here, Ben Louis, Queen of the South. Ben Moore there behind it as well. Looking down there to the mountains of Arran in the very far distance there. Over there, Jura, and the paps of Jura in the cloud. And behind Ben Cruachan there, the Isle of Mull. Alright, I lied. It's not all downhill after Stob Daimh. This is 0.947, which doesn't really qualify as a top, but nevertheless it is a rise. This is the final bit of ascent on it before we descend back down towards the reservoir. However, you can't grumble with views like this. Well, here we are, having descended to the Larrig Torren, which means Pass of the Thunder, or the Loud Murmuring. But thunder probably sounds more dramatic, doesn't it? So we'll go with that. Just over this rise here, we'll find a burn that runs down the hillside. The path runs down to the right-hand side of that, and that'll basically join us up with a little hydro track back to the dam along the banks of the reservoir. So without further ado, let's bash on down there.
Hundreds of years before the reservoir and the dam were ever conceived, it's said that cattle were brought over this pass to graze in the lush pastures of Coire Corrach. Some historians have suggested that Robert the Bruce possibly passed over the Larrig Torren on his way to the battle at the Pass of Brander, but given the choice between this and the route beside the loch, I know which one I'd choose. However, maybe that road was being watched and he wanted to maintain a stealthy approach. Still, must have been a right pain in the backside getting all that bog slime out of their chainmail. The path peters out here, which is really helpful, with a brutal climb up Ben Cruachan ahead for the overstimulated, and for the rest of us, the way back down to Coire Corrach to the right. Initially very boggy and pathless, the descent may cause you to check your map, but bear with it. You'll soon find yourself overlooking the reservoir, and further down, the path crosses the gully and the stream to contour, boggily, along the shore to a track back to the dam. Thanks so much for watching, and I really hope you've enjoyed this first episode of our second series. Next time, we go slightly north to the head of Loch Awe to climb Ben Cruachan, Ben Cruachan, and look at the history of Kilkerne Castle and the rise of arguably the most powerful clan of all time, the Campbells of Argyll. Until then, enjoy your adventures.